Hello, everybody, and well, I bet you couldn't tell that we have a few technical difficulties this morning. I'm Jim Williams. This is the Politically Incorrect podcast for Thursday. 83 days into the Israel-Hamas war. Our cover story, after we listened to Tal Heinrich give us the daily briefing, is about Israel's request for Apache helicopters. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions of what's going on, and a lot of, basically bad information. I will set straight the record right after we listen to Tal in the morning, afternoon there, daily briefing. This is Tal Heinrich. After we hear from Tal, we'll catch up on the other side with the latest headlines headed by our cover story about the Apache helicopters. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Tal Heinrich.
Tal Heinrich, a spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister's office. This is day 83 of the October 7th war. We begin today with some of the latest figures. Since Hamas's unprovoked massacre on October 7th, over 13,000 rockets have been launched towards Israel. These rockets are launched in violation of international law, whether being fired from civilian areas, fired towards civilians in Israel, or fired from designated UN demilitarized zones. Shame on the terror organizations and international actors who cover up for these daily provocations. Since yesterday, another 3 IDF soldiers have been killed in action, bringing the IDF's tally to 501. The fallen soldiers are 32-year-old Major Dvir David Fima, 24-year-old Captain Neria Zisk, and 22-year-old Sergeant First Class Asaf Pinchas Tubul. We send our heartfelt condolences to their families. Hamas continues to hold 129 people hostage since the 10/7 massacre, many of whom require life-saving medications, which the International Red Cross continues to deny them. We remind you that even before 10/7, Hamas held another 4 Israeli hostages in violation of international law. Hamas's very existence is a threat to Israelis' way of life, and we will continue to explore every avenue to secure our hostages' release and the dismantling of this terrorist regime. And now an operational update. Yesterday evening, the elite IDF forces destroyed 3 of Hamas's terror tunnels, which were found both in the Rantisi hospital and near a school building. One of the tunnel shafts, located in a girls' school, was 20 meters deep and even included a fully functional elevator. Instead of investing in their children's future, Hamas terrorists funneled money towards a diabolical terror machine. We continue to demand that the UN, and in particular UNICEF, call out Hamas's perversion of hospital and children's school buildings. Though these discoveries are horrible, they are no longer surprising. The more our forces expose Hamas's infrastructure, the more we realize how much they systematically betray their own people. They need to go. And now an update from the Northern Front. Israelis woke up this morning to yet another barrage of rockets launched by Hezbollah terrorists towards Israeli towns. To those international organizations and heads of state who persistently call for de-escalation in the region, now is your moment to speak up. Since this war began with Hamas's unprovoked massacre, you have watched IDF forces act with both precision and restraint in dealing with Iran's proxy in the north. With each passing day, Iranian proxies continue to become more brazen, and the international community's silence is nothing but wind in their sails. Enough is enough. Speak up now instead of later criticizing our decisive response. The authoritarian Iranian regime seeks bloodshed and chaos. They publicly refer to the United States as the big Satan and refer to Israel as the small Satan, while also calling to destroy our states. Their proxies desperately aim to destabilize our region. Do not side with the aggressors. Just as we did not start a war with Hamas, we do not wish to start a war with Hezbollah, yet we remain more than capable of wiping out any threats in the north. To Iran and your proxies, we send a clear message. Do not test our resolve. It would be a terrible, terrible mistake. And finally, we are indignant following President Erdogan's despicable, nonsensical comparison between Adolf Hitler and our Prime Minister. Not only do his statements twist reality beyond recognition, but they also shamefully disrespect the legacy and victims of the Holocaust. The Turkish president exhibits both moral and historical confusion which have no bounds. And as our Prime Minister said, Erdogan openly commits genocide against the Kurds and routinely imprisons journalists who dare shed light on his cruelty. And we are expected to heed his moral condemnations. We condemn Erdogan's remarks in the strongest possible terms. In Israel, we will continue to fight against pure evil while upholding the highest standards of military operational conduct. If corrupt leaders criticize us along the way, we leave them to fall on the wrong side of history. I am now happy to take your questions.
The first question comes from Maayan Lubel of Reuters. We would appreciate comment on report published by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, citing what it describes as a, quote, rapid deterioration of human rights in the West Bank and urging Israeli authorities to end violence against the Palestinian population there. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We have seen this report. And first, I'll say that we are deeply concerned that it shows what we already knew, that Palestinians are arming 15-year-olds and telling them to confront IDF forces. It is outrageous. Now, the rest of the report, I would say, it is quite ridiculous in the way that it completely belittles the major security threats to Israelis emerging from Judea and Samaria. You know, unlike many in the international community and at the United Nations even, Israel takes Palestinian words, actions, threats very, very seriously. We believe the terrorists when they say that they will finish off the one and only Jewish state in the world. You know, they say it, they chant it, they write it, they act on it. We don't need any more proof. Hamas leaders are saying that they would carry out another October 7th massacre again and again and again. So we will not allow it, not in the south and not in the west. So again, as for this report, our forces are operating in Judea and Samaria to keep that front as quiet as possible, despite the many challenges that we have there. You have their Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad strongholds. They're certainly there. They wish to hurt Israelis, and we're making sure that they will lack the capabilities to do that, even though they have the desire, as we know. And yes, we arrested hundreds of terror suspects in that area, and we will continue to do whatever it takes to maintain our security. Now, as this report indicates, do security checks complicate the day-to-day life of uninvolved civilians? Well, to a certain extent, the answer is yes. But the ones to blame are the terrorists, people involved in terrorist activity. And as for what the report said about so-called settler violence, you see, if people violate the law, we prosecute them, regardless of their religious or political affiliation. The Prime Minister has been very, very clear. He said that nobody should be taking the law into their own hands. The numbers are actually showing a significant decrease in an already marginal phenomena. And the overwhelming majority, it's important to mention here, of the so-called settler community are law-abiding citizens. Do not mistake the exception for the rule.
The next question comes from Jim Williams of Zenger International News. Jim asks about communication between Israel and the U.S. He says, Secretary Austin has said that any more aggressive military actions by the Iranian proxies will be met with force. Is the Israeli and the U.S. on the same page?
100%, Jim. We are on the same page. Secretary Austin, when he was here just a bit more than a week and a half ago, I believe, he also said that the U.S. support to Israel's just cause in this war is, quote, unshakable. And we are in lockstep with our American partners in what pertains to the goals of this war, which are, of course, to eliminate the Hamas terrorist regime, to bring back all hostages home, and to make sure that this enclave will never pose a terror threat to Israelis again. We have been communicating with the White House on a daily, even hourly basis. As you know, U.S. officials are visited here several times and will continue to do so. And we keep communicating, and we see eye to eye, again, about what pertains to the goals of this war. We all want the same. Yes.
The next question is from Hannah Julian of the Jewish Press. There have been reports that the U.S. has denied an Israeli request for attack helicopters. Can you confirm or deny, and do you have any comment? Thank you.
No, I do not have any comment about this specific report. That concludes the daily briefing for today. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thanks to Tal for bringing that daily briefing to us. All right, so let's move quickly into what we said we were going to talk about, and that is the Israelis' latest weapons request includes Apache helicopters. Now, the first question from Reuters that you heard from Tal, pardon me, talked about deny. All right, well, that's not true. Okay, they're not denied. They haven't been denied. What they have been is Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has basically put a hold on that. Okay, he has concerns, and those concerns are basically, for those who don't know, the Apache helicopter is possibly the most lethal, one of the most lethal, I'll put it that way, tools we have in our wartime toolbox, okay? An Apache helicopter can fire rockets, it can fire bullets. It's basically made to protect people in in urban areas. Obviously, Israelis have pilots who pilot the Apache helicopters. However, this new breed of Apache helicopters are extremely sophisticated, and since they carry armaments on them that are so lethal in the abilities, you need to know how to now work this entirely new version of the Apache helicopter. So Secretary Austin has been in contact with his counterparts in Israel, and he's been vetting who the pilots are and getting some information. The coordination between the IDF and the United States Pentagon has been constant. They will likely get the helicopters. They have, I think it's 2 now, 2 or 4 that they use, and they're overtaxed because you got to go back and rearm the helicopters. But the point should be noted here that the United States Pentagon and the Department of Defense and Secretary of Defense Austin has not said no. They put a pin in it for the moment because they want to make sure that something that is this lethal is in the hands of someone who can absolutely fly it. Now, it should be noted that no one is saying that Israeli pilots are not capable of flying these things. But here in the United States, we've had a number of some of the most elite helicopter pilots we have to take a refresher course, if you will, on how the Apache works and the new computerized version of the Apache. So the reports that the U.S. is not going to sell the helicopters to the Israelis is it's just not true. Okay, it's on pause, as I said, and once Secretary Austin is convinced that the pilots that will be flying these war machines are capable of doing it, so that a mistake does not happen. Okay, that's the reason the Apache helicopters have not been deployed there. So, at that point, some people have questioned. Okay, as a matter of fact, I've got some questions. David, this is a Twitter question. David Coppersmith has a question. David's question is, has the fact with the Apache helicopters, does that mean the United States is not going to support Israel with regards to armaments? Well, no, that is not it's not the answer. As a matter of fact, I actually have a graphic here. Let's grab this graphic here and put it in. Thus far, the United States has provided the IDF with over 250 plane loads of battle gear, and that means rifles, missiles, anything that an army would need to survive and prosper has been sent to the IDF. Now, the IDF they are a partner here, but like all of our partners, including the Ukraine and wherever it may be around the world, they are allowed to purchase this. So I want to make sure that you understand that the over 250 plane loads that have gone to the region, to the IDF, when at the start of the October 7th war, continue to go on a daily basis, okay? And they are paid for by the state of Israel, okay? So that, I think, is a very important definition with what's going on. So don't let the holdup of the Apache helicopters be something that you are concerned about when it comes to the United States helping and arming Israel in their fight against Hamas. It's not the case, okay? What is the case, as I said before, is concern over elite pilots being able to fly these amazing Apache helicopters, okay? So that's where the hang-up is. Don't confuse helping Israel and getting Israel what they need to fight both Hamas and Hezbollah. So that's something we need to look at, and as I said before, we will keep you posted on what's going on in that regard. All right, so let's talk for a minute about some of our questions. Let me just quickly take a look here. Okay, Emmanuel Davis. He's got a question for us on YouTube. Okay, so Emmanuel, your question has to do with planning and morning after. Well, we're not there yet. Okay, so we got a ways to go, but planning and what's going to happen after, right? Okay, everything here needs to be put in context with regards to history, because what I'm seeing out there is a lot of people who either got bad grades in history, or they just didn't, they missed it. They were absent that day. A lot of people are comparing this war to a traditional war, and no, you're making a mistake. I'll use a legal term. It's a definition without a distinction, all right? The definition of Israel versus Hamas, is it a war? Yeah, you've got two opposing viewpoints in a military action which Israel didn't ask for. Hamas went ahead and implemented it. Hamas is not a country. Hamas, in some regards represents the Palestinian people, but that's another story for another day. You can call it a war, but it's not traditional. And here's where the definition with the distinction comes in. Here's the distinction part of the definition. You can say that the Ukraine and Russia battles is going on as we enter year 2 of that international conflict. That is a traditional war. You've got 2 countries, presidents, parliament, the whole routine. They have 2 structured people who could, and I assume in time, will figure out a way to resolve this, this war that they have in a more traditional way, which is where you have representatives of both countries coming together and hammering out some sort of agreement. That's, at the moment, that's a long way away. And I'm pretty sure that Putin is willing to play this thing out until the elections to find out who the next president will be. So there's no reason at this point, he's gone this long, and so there's no reason to believe that somehow, some way that's going to get resolved anytime soon. We all wish it would, but I think that would be foolish. So let's go back to the definition with the distinction. If you're dealing with a terrorist organization, the United States did it. We all remember that. A couple of times, as a matter of fact, one with ISIS, and of course, Osama bin Laden, and that group. And so, right after 9/11, fighting a group with a terrorist group, you're fighting something that's different. You're not fighting a country, you're fighting an ideology. Okay? So if their goal is to destroy the U.S., or in this case, has Hamas and Hezbollah, concern is to destroy the the state of Israel, then what happens is that they don't. There's no one person in charge. Okay, there's a group of people in charge. So far, on the negotiation side, we've seen the Qataris play a very big role in this, and to some extent the Egyptians as well, trying to figure out what to do and being in contact as best they can with the people who run Hamas. Now, do we know, because there are a lot of splinter groups off of Hamas, what's going on? Are they being able to communicate back and forth from northern Gaza to southern Gaza to wherever they may be? We don't know that. What we're doing is, we had something that the United States and Israel and Qatar and some other states in the region came up and said, okay, fine, we'll do a hostage exchange program, and they did that. And it lasted for a week, and then Hamas violated the terms of the agreement, and so they're back at war. It makes it very difficult to fight a war with Hamas because it is an ideology. So there's no clear, distinct leader who you can use and talk to who can basically say, okay, fine, we'll agree to this. You've got actors who would prefer this continue to go on forever. As Tal put in the daily briefing, Iran, Iran is definitely one of them who likes to see chaos, and chaos is good for them. So, General Austin, in a statement he had earlier this week, talked about the United States and their movement against the proxies from Iran when they carried out some systematic hits on bases in Jordan and Lebanon. Sorry, Syria and Lebanon. And I think that both President Biden and Secretary Austin came through with what one would consider reasonable, and that was, look, the deal is, Hezbollah is not going to get involved in this. Iran's not going to get involved in this. We will stop this, meaning the United States. So they've been forewarned, and we'll see how it plays out. But remember, as I said, the war between Hamas and Israel is not traditional. It is what we now have as a war, and it's a country versus an ideology. In this case, Hamas terrorist groups, so much like ISIS. So that's how it has to be seen. If we're talking about the rules of war, well, only one side's playing by the rules of war, and that would be Israel. Hamas is not playing by the rules of war. As a matter of fact, they literally broke all but maybe two of the requirements that are, under consideration when you apply the Geneva Convention to. They attacked civilians, they beheaded people, they killed innocent people in a targeted attack to do just that. Okay? Any rule and every rule that has to do with the rules of war, specifically to the Geneva Convention, which has, war rules to it, they broke on day one. So there's no reason to believe that you're dealing with an actor who wants to see a happy ending to this. Okay? It's not going to happen. Okay? So we'll have to see how that plays out. If you remember, it took almost a decade, maybe even a little over a decade, for the United States to take out Osama bin Laden, and that was, quite an extensive mission through two administrations, the Bush administration, the Obama administration, to get to that. Okay, so we'll have to see how this particular issue plays out. So you don't have a defined hierarchy here. You've got names and people that you think are in charge, but who can make the final call and decide how it ends? On the Hamas side, we don't know. And we don't know that it would. So there we are in that. Any more quick questions? We had a couple more time for a couple. Twitter. What do we got on Twitter? We got Sarah Jenkins. Sarah, what you got? All right, let me look real quick. Okay, humanitarian aid. Yes. Look, the Israeli government has said that they can and will supply as much aid as the UN, people can handle. And right now there are about 200 plus trucks a day. They could double that, perhaps even triple that, if the UN and their peacekeeping groups who are distributing this, the food, the medicine, and all that to the Palestinian people, if they could move quicker on it. There has been numerous reports, so they haven't even tried to hide it, that the UN, for what reasons I have no idea, have been ripped off at their at these centers where all the places stockpiled. So it's like a large warehouse. There's been stuff stolen out of there. Now, you would think that they would have security involved, but clearly they don't. So Israel is happy to do whatever they can to get more trucks into Gaza. They've got 2 open areas now. There is talk about ships coming in via Cyprus. Those are ongoing conversations. It's not happening right now, but it could happen sooner as opposed to later. We'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, the Israel situation of getting aid to the Palestinian people is something that there is a high priority. I'm not sure that you can get as much aid as they need to them. Okay, it's just logistically could be a problem. I mean, you're in the middle of a war zone, so it makes it difficult to be sure. So I know that Israel's doing what they can. Could everybody be doing more? I think we all could, and I think that's something that we'll see in the upcoming months. But that's about all we have time for today. We're going to be back day 84 tomorrow. We're hoping that this war doesn't last too long, but one never knows when it comes to war. And there's conversations which we'll delve into probably tomorrow from Egypt and from other people within the region who would like to see this whole thing come to an end with a 2-state solution. We'll get into the 2-state solution tomorrow, but just a little preamble to that, and that is that you're not going to, you can't expect people. I mean, a lot of people are talking about the Marshall Plan, which was initiated in World War II. I'll go in deep. We'll do a deep dive into that tomorrow. But the moment that the war was over in Europe and in Japan, everybody wasn't friends. Okay, they weren't. There was a lot of thinking that went into the Marshall Plan as to what are we going to do to help rebuild Europe and help rebuild in Japan. So this is a long. This is the long goal, right? The 2-state solution is the long goal. You can't get there, the morning after. The morning after is a time for both sides, the Israelis and the Palestinians, to begin the process of healing and begin the process of working out the details for a preliminary step. This is a long goal, a long-term goal. Is it a decade away? I don't know. Is it 5 years away? Is it 20 years away? Is it never going to happen? Well, it's never going to happen if you don't try. We'll go into that tomorrow on what could be the path to a longer and more stable Middle East. And so we'll go over that in tomorrow's show. Got to thank all of you for joining us today. We'll get to more questions tomorrow, and I promise. And as the scroll goes across there, as our little graphic goes across, it asks you to subscribe. Hit the bell so that you can get all of our. Because if something urgent happens, we come on and we bring it to you. We bring you press conferences from Israel, from the United States, from anywhere where it makes sense to what's going on in the Middle East. We'll bring you those press conferences. So please subscribe, hit the bell, like us. Feel free to leave a comment, because we'll answer them all. Doesn't matter whether or not you agree with us or disagree with us. It's okay. I mean, we want this to be both educational and construction. Okay. If it's got to be constructive, it's got to be educational. That way we learn more about where people are, and you can teach me something. I hope to teach you something as well. If for some reason you can't watch us on YouTube, which is cool, we've got our podcast, which is done been done over. I think we're in our fourth year of doing the Politically Incorrect podcast. You can find it on Apple, Amazon, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and Audible. along with wherever you get your podcasts. So that'll be up here in about approximately an hour. And we wish and hope that you all have a wonderful day and a safe day. No matter where you are in the world, you can follow us on Twitter. My handle right there is at JWMediaDC. There's links in the show box below where you can read the content that we're putting out. And so I hope that we're helping you get through this and make some sense of sometimes what seemingly is a senseless situation. So we thank you for your time. We thank you for the fact that you've taken some of your own time to join us, and we shall see you tomorrow. Everybody be safe, take your time, and hopefully we'll all be able to stay safe as we move into the new year, just a few days away. Take care, everybody. Thank you for your time.